Harry Purdy, what the hell? I can't believe I was on your podcast at episode 121, and here you are on my podcast, episode 7.
Do you know what, Andy? I saw that you were doing podcasts, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast for the listeners. I really fucking enjoyed having you on my show. And when I saw
Thanks,
you were
man.
delivering a podcast for yourself, I was like, do you know what? This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. I'm going to throw my name in the ring, and here I am on your show.
Love
So
that.
thank you for having me, man.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. So, Harry, before we get started, where the hell did 100% podcast come from? Because obviously you've got a lot of episodes on your podcast, and when I first looked at setting up a podcast, I was like, Harry's doing this every week. This looks like a lot of work. Where did this come from?
So the podcast idea originated in COVID. Of course it did. Everyone had a lot of energy to spare, including myself. And COVID revolved around a time where I was at my lowest in my journey. In 2020, 2019, there was a lot of mental health issues for me, but I knew that there was some kind of creative energy that needed to be used. And I'm not even going to say embarrassingly, but there was a lot of different things that I tried in that time frame as well. So I don't know if you remember, Pokemon boomed in the lockdown period. So I tried some buying and selling. This was like the early times of trying a hobby, which actually went quite well, but obviously dwindles. It costs a lot of money to get set up properly, and you're never ever going to compete with the big people that can spend thousands and thousands of pounds on cards. Anyway, that's a different story. I also tried my hand at streaming gaming, which at the time, like, I thought was a good idea, very relevant to the time. And
That's mad, right? So people streaming, watching you playing the game.
Yeah.
That as a concept, that's fucking mental, right?
But what is also mental about it is if you were to look at a channel like Twitch, some of these big streamers now have got 5 million followers, and you could log into somebody and they're just chatting at the time, and there's 100,000 people watching them. It's crazy. Like, it seriously is crazy. So around this time, I was looking for this thing, and I'd obviously been on a journey with physical health, not quite mental health at the time. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a podcast. And I've always been an advocate for sport. And my idea was I was going to speak to people locally who had either done cool things locally or gone on and made it from the local area into professional sport. And that's what it started. It started as the Grassroots Guy podcast. But then, of course, when you speak to people about their stories, it's not just about the talent or the hard work that they did. There's a lot of mindset stuff that comes into that as well, and how they overcame this challenge, how they overcame that challenge. So then the Grassroots Guy podcast, when I was having my rebrand done for my coaching with Craig Gillespie, I'm more than happy to, absolute legend, total brand it's. I was like, I really want to think about renaming this podcast, because it's not a Grassroots Guy podcast. It's not about people making it from grassroots sport to professional anymore. It's not just about grassroots sports. I'm speaking to people like yourself, Andy. I'm speaking to people like Paul Moore. I'm speaking to people like Rob McGeary about how to look after your brain and your body.
Yeah, man.
And I kind of said to Craig in my my call with him, where he was diving into what I wanted, my niche and all those kind of things. So is there anything that you do specifically? And I was like, well, actually, funny enough, people have mentioned that I say 100% a lot when I answer a question, or when I agree with somebody. Oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah, 100%. And then, without even realizing, within about 2 minutes, that's his creative brain. He was like, HP, 100%.
What the fuck? That's mad, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, oh, well, yeah, who knows?
And so out of the box thinking. But
I literally had one of those nuclear bomb brain moments. Like, wow. Yeah. No, it was the creation of the 100% podcast.
Wow, man. That's just crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. What, do you know, while we're on that, because we are now at this, it's 5 years, I think this month, isn't it, that we went into our first lockdown.
Oh my God, yeah.
Mate, what's the dumbest thing you did in lockdown?
The first thing that came to my head was I tried every beer.
Oh, mate, it sounds like a Gavin and Stacey challenge.
Yeah, in Tesco's and Asda in Yeovil. But when I don't drink, I'm not drinking this year. That's one of my massive 2025 targets. But when I look back at that version of me at the time, not well mentally, not in the best shape physically, but just trying to numb the fact that I couldn't socialize. I remember like me and a couple of mates just jumping on Zoom and just having some beers and listening to some music, and you're thinking, fuck me. And what, again, no disrespect to anybody, I saw this week people were like positively reminiscing about lockdown. And don't get me wrong, you can't have a negative thing without a positive thing, and
Yeah,
vice
yeah, yeah.
versa. You can't have it. But was it really that fucking good? I
Yeah.
personally, I don't think it was.
No.
Like, I mean, if they asked me to do it again, it would be interesting to see how I would respond, I think.
I just know that we don't have the police infrastructure to actually support the amount of people that would tell the government to fuck off this time.
Yeah. And I completely, I'm glad you said it, but I completely agree with you. I know more people than not that would literally, I think people would rather like knock holes through their walls in the houses, so at least you had a little community. You know, if you lived
Yeah.
in like a terraced row, you could make like tunnels through, so at least you could socialize with somebody. You know what
And
I
no one would
mean?
know.
Yeah,
Mate, I
mad.
don't think we were far off that. I don't think we like people were going crazy, and then I truly believe that there was a lot of things that happened for me within that COVID-19 period where um I don't think I saw my mental health deteriorate at the time, and it's not until you look back now and you think, yeah, I was in the garden. I was training nearly every day because I was like, oh, cool, got nothing to do. And you say, we're just saying to you about like the dumbest thing you did in lockdown. Whilst I asked you the question, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't have a box to jump on, but I had loads of old pallets and a chair. And there's a picture of me doing box jumps on like a chair, but with two pallets on top of it to get it to the right height, just so I could enter the Turf Games online competition.
Yeah, I never did anything like that, but I think it was just my relationship with food and being, at the time you could only go out once a day,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So most days I would go out for a walk or a run, and when I would run, I wasn't at my, I wasn't what I am now, right? So I couldn't just
Hmm.
go out and run a 10K willy-nilly every day.
Yeah.
It was 2-3 miles. But I think the stupidest thing that you can do, and this maybe is a little bit when you overthink the answer, is you just get okay with not doing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Related. I think that's what you, when you look back, you can consider being the stupidest thing. But yeah, it's a really interesting time to look back on. Really interesting time to look back on.
Amazing. Wait, what do you think? What sort of, is there any particular lessons maybe that you've learned from that then? That now, like, obviously moving forward to where you are now, because obviously, I mean, we haven't even gone into the point of when you kind of you had your big moment. Because obviously, I know I've seen the pictures of you before when you'd lost, when you were obviously a bit overweight and you've lost a lot of weight. But like in that middle period for you, what do you think? Is there like a big lesson that you learned in that time?
Yeah, there was one of the most cliche things that I do utilize for me is the devil will make work for idle hands for me. I'm somebody that, with my experiences with mental health, depression, low mood, and anxiety, creating my own worries, was that the less busy I was on things that I cared about, by the way, not
Hmm.
just staying busy for being busy's sake, having no purpose, having no desire, was the reason why that materialized itself. What was the reason why I was so low? Was the reason why I was creating so many problems for myself? So during that lockdown period, as we explained, I was getting on top of, or trying to work out a recipe or like a potion to be able to get on top of this stuff. And obviously there was many different little habits and hobbies that started during that time. But whilst I was starting those things, even when I did my first Movember fundraiser in November 2020, the interesting story from that was it was a month of complete movement, where I did 200 kilometers over the month, which in terms of what I have gone on to do now, is small in relative speaking. Most people could probably move 200K over a month, but it's the first time I'd raised money. And I was so busy over that month with the steps. And I think in that November, there was like a little bit of a the rules had got less. And then
Yeah, yeah.
in that Christmas, they put us back into full lockdown.
We
And
smuggled my brother-in-law from Bristol. You know, like they were shutting London down that Christmas. We drove to Bristol. We got to Bristol at like 1 minute past midnight, and at that point, technically, no one was allowed out. But we drove back from Bristol, like genuinely felt never felt like a criminal. But like driving him back for Christmas, we were like,
got the flashlights out on your car and
yeah,
just driving down in pitch black. But yeah, when I look back at that in that 2020 moment, and I realized that after that, after I'd been preoccupied with something that I really cared about, raising that money for Movember for people that was kind of suffering through the same things, and obviously they do other stuff with regards to specifically cancer that men do tend to get.
yeah.
At that December period where I had my lowest ever moment, I became anxious again. I became really sad again. I had that depression, suicidal thoughts, all of these kind of things, and they started to materialize. So it's definitely have a purpose, have something you care about, keep moving forward.
I love that, man. I love that, mate. Let's roll back then to that moment for you where you made that massive change with your health and well-being. What happened there? Why did that change? What was the reason for the change?
Yeah, so there's one with physical health, and I think what's really important here, Andy, is that you and I are lucky that we are both aware that but if I just say along my journey from 2016, I was 23 and a half stone.
Wow,
So
man.
yeah, that was my physical health journey to where I'm at now. And then in 2020, mental health as well. But one thing when I started the journey of doing both in 2020, I kind of would go through even on the podcast, I've had early conversations with people. What matters more? Is it your physical health or is it your mental health? And I genuinely believe that you can't separate them. They are
Uh-huh.
fully intertwined. You can't have good mental health without looking after your physical body, because your physical body is the thing that carries your brain. It carries it around everywhere. And your brain needs to be looked after physically with what you eat and how much you move for it to be working at its best self as well. And also, there's other things with regards to getting outside of your comfort zone that maybe will come up later in the podcast. But that's the first thing that I'd say. But in 2016, at the time, I used to manage a men's football team, and I was 23 and a half stone. But this team, we were good. Like, we were local football, but we were a good team. I had a lot of good mates. I was blessed to have a good circle of mates that could play football. And in this season, we won the treble. But on the cup final day where we won the treble, I had a choice to make. I had 18 players available, and you could only select 16 for the squad. Cutting a long story short, because of my size and my weight, I dropped myself, so I wasn't playing, and had this kind of like nagging feeling within me that why am I not playing? My family are coming to watch. Loads of people are going to be there, but unfortunately, you're on the bench. Why is that? And I knew what the reason for that was. And on the morning of the cup final, I woke up with like frustration slash excitement of you're not playing because you're massively overweight, slash I'm up and I'm excited at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's a cup final today. So,
Yeah, yeah.
hey,
Mixed
literally,
emotions, yeah?
yeah. I grabbed my shorts, put my trainers on that I had at the time. They weren't running trainers, they were just some random. And I tried to run, and I couldn't even run a mile without stopping.
Wow.
And I got round, and I remember the route. My dad still lives in the village. Came round. The start was downhill, so that was okay. Little bit of flat. It turned around so you could go back on yourself up a hill called Stone Hill, and I was gassed. And I remember like walking up with, like hands on your hips, like rocking away like this. I was like, fuck, like I can't run a mile. And then something shifted in me. And then the next time I went out, I got further. And then the next time I got out, I got further. But one thing that's really important to remember in this cycle is that there was when I'd done that, there something did trigger in me and was like, you need to lose weight. You are going to lose weight, and that was what I decided to do. But I didn't do it in the most healthy way. A lot of it was based solely on just running, which again is fine, but looking after your body and muscles when you're 23 stone and you're bashing against the pavement like
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
Injuries, fad diets, not a great relationship with food that I've had to gradually work on, like over the time of being a coach for weight loss as well and transformation. So that happened, and then I found James Smith, and then the relationship with food gradually started to improve in 2018, 19 into 20. So then we got to 2020, and again, when you, I think a lot of people would agree, Andy, that when you have mental health issues and have experienced yourself not being at the feeling or thought process that you want to be at, sometimes you can't really put a finger on to why, right? Because there's so many factors that are playing into that. And I could label maybe 5 to 10 different things. My parents got divorced when I was 18. I
So,
dealt
got
with
that
that.
one.
Yeah. Definitely didn't deal with that very well. I'm very much a family person.
Oh,
And
actually, do you know what? Actually, I'll take that back. My parents never got divorced. They separated, and they've been separated for 23 years and still haven't got divorced.
wow, yeah, well, at
That's
least mine,
mad. That's it. I think that's even worse.
my dad's a sucker for paperwork, mate. He loves it. No, I'm joking. So that was one thing. At the time, I was in a relationship in 2000 that I just knew wasn't the one for me.
Mhm.
And big part of my journey is that I can be a bit of a people pleaser, right?
Mhm.
I like to make other people feel good. I wouldn't say that's a criticism of myself, but and I've knowing you, Andy, I would imagine that because of how your parents were, I would imagine that there's some similarities between you and me on that front as well.
Honestly, mate, if it was a checklist, I've ticked everything off so far.
Yeah. So yeah, the unhappy relationship, obviously looking after my physical health, but not my mental health. And I was drinking a lot at the
Mhm.
time as well. Wasn't sleeping very well because of the thoughts going through my head. Then that list kind of continues, and then you end up in a capitulated kind of state. And what would happen at this time is because of the statistics and conversations around mental health were rising during COVID and all of those kind of things. And I'd always been that person that I would say I was just a happy lad, no matter what size I was, confident, happy, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
naturally, what I would think about would be, I don't want to be one of those statistics. And
Mhm.
it wasn't a criticism of anybody that had any mental health issues. It wasn't me going, I'm better than those people. It was just the sheer fact of being scared. You hear those stories, right? You
Yeah.
get anxious, you get depressed, you kill yourself. That's kind of, if you, that was what my loop was doing in my head.
And what's scary in what you've just said there, I've heard a few stories of the person who went to help, got help, said, I'm struggling with sleeping and I'm struggling with depression. And then they've given, the doctors have given them a concoction of antidepressants and sleeping tablets. And we all know what happens after that.
Mm.
It's frightening, right?
Really scary. So in that moment, and again, like without, I'm not, I don't very often say this, but there was definitely some kind of like insecurity issues with the bedroom and things like that. Being a young man, that would all just be chucked into this pot of worries, fears,
Mhm.
repetitive loops in my head. I'm not this person. I don't have the confidence. And it was just it was a bit of a mess. But like when I look back at my brain at the time, I was a young man in a lot of distress,
Mhm.
going through the motions of being a young man, I think, expecting
Yeah.
too much of myself and all of these kind of things. So went to the therapist, and I have a huge respect for my therapist. She started to ask me the right questions and make me realize that it was very normal to
Mhm.
kind of go through these challenges. And we worked on a lot of things. But one thing I will say is that I give myself huge credit in this moment because I was offered antidepressants straight away. Boom. There they were to be taken. And I said, I'd rather do this myself first and give it a go first before I take anything.
Mate, I've
Eh,
always wanted, I've always wanted one of those road podcasters that's got the sound effects buttons. I fucking want to press the fucking round of applause button right there,
Yeah.
man. Because
Thank you,
that's
man.
where, like 100%, too many people say yes. It's too fucking easy. Like, I know family members who have had them, I know friends who have had them, and they're still fucking on them now.
Yeah. And again, we're in I guess a privileged position with with some knowledge behind it as well to know that that isn't necessarily the answer. And there is a small percentage of people in the world for sure that are unfortunate that their chemicals of depression and low mood can be triggered easier than other people. And I understand that, but there are actions that you can take to actually leave the pills aside, give yourself a few months,
Mhm.
do these things that we're going to speak about today, and then you're going to feel a better version of yourself for sure. So I went through that, and then through this cycle of I'd feel okay for a few weeks, then I'd have a moment, and then I'd feel okay for a few weeks, and then I'd have a moment. And they call it the recovery circle, right? Whether you, even if you look at it from a perspective of addiction, these kind of thoughts that I would have, I would fight against, and then of course they stimulate and be worse.
Yeah.
And if you were to look at it and give it a label, there's some kind of like OCD element to this. Like the thoughts that I was having, I would get fixated on, and that would be the only thing that would go through my head. And then it led to that 2020 Christmas Day. I was in a state of one of my low mood periods anyway, and I was beating myself up about it completely. I'd been on the phone to the doctors, as basically explaining to him that I didn't want to commit suicide, but all I could think about was that I might, like, not because I wanted to, but because my brain was going, "You're this low. Are you going to commit suicide now?" Blah, blah. And that would just upset me. Of course it would. Like, it would most people, right? There's not many people that could handle those thoughts without some kind of feeling behind them. And what's interesting now is when I talk about it, I can kind of separate myself from that version or those thought processes, although it kind of makes your shoulders tighten up and you feel a bit,
Of course, man.
but yeah, of course. And then I'd gone through that moment, had the phone call, and I did that down at my mum's, and I knew that I wasn't in my best self mood. I wasn't that happy. I was like, yeah, all of those things were there. And on Christmas Day 2020, I'd been round my dad's for lunch, and I'd gone back to my mum's, and waiting for this happy moment of opening presents together, like bit of Christmas evening dinner. And I just was crying, mate, just sobbing, like uncontrollably sobbing. When she walked back through the door, "What's wrong? What's going on?" I'm like, "I don't really know. Like my thoughts are just like on top of me right now." Like, and obviously you feel bad because like her new fella's there, like my mum's there, and I'm almost bringing their Christmas down, right? A bit of a like what was a shit place for me. But again, I knew that whatever it was that needed to happen was within me. And then it came to what I call my mirror prophecy. So Boxing Day had gone, which is my mum's birthday. I think I just about managed to keep myself together on Boxing Day. And then I came home because I stay at my mum's for Christmas. I came home on the 27th. And on the 27th, I'd had a planned hike with my cousins. And that's not where the story starts. The story starts waiting for the lift for me to go to this walk with my cousins. I sat in this room. The bed is messy, but I sat on that bed there. Look,
Nice.
this all of this kit wasn't here at that point because that's the new part of the journey. And again, I'd had this moment. I'm going out with my cousins. I still feel like shit, and I just cried. And I was like, for fuck's sakes, like, you know, like just shook it off. You know what? You like 10. Like I stood up, walked out into the hallway, looked at myself in the mirror, and when I explained this in my keynote on Sunday for in my event, and I said it wasn't as though I separated myself because that's impossible. Like, of course, what I did in the mirror was the thing, but I just looked at myself and was like, "What's going on, man?" And then I just smiled, and the fact that I smiled at myself gave me a bit of a boost. Like, I know that sounds a bit wanky, sounds a bit hippy dippy, but it was like at that separate moment, or at that moment, sorry, a separation occurred between how I was feeling and what I could do, if that makes any kind of sense. I smiled, but I was crying, right? It was almost like I'd cracked a little laugh at myself because I knew that what I was doing to myself, which is essentially what I was doing, I was not allowing, but I was creating a environment where I was allowing these thoughts to fester. I separated myself from them for all of 1.2 seconds maybe, and that gave me a bit of a confidence to move on. And then of course, when those things happen, you hit those rock bottom moments. The cliche thing to say is the only way I wanted to choose to go was up from there.
Amazing.
And here we are today, mate, in 2025 on your podcast.
I love that. Do you know what? I had, like, talking about the divorce and separation of parents. I was in the music industry in the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, and I didn't realize until probably a few years ago that I wrote down a lot of how I was feeling back then. And it's not until these like coming years where I've looked at lyrics and gone like, fucking hell, like that's a pivotal moment. And you just said something about the mirror then, and I remember a lyric that I wrote, which was, the mirror ain't to blame. It's just that pictures, they fade. So
Mm.
like that old image that you maybe saw of yourself had changed, and you were seeing this new person you were becoming.
Yeah.
And I genuinely just, I think it's amazing that sometimes we have to stop and, no pun intended, but reflect, right?
Yeah,
Genuinely have to reflect.
for sure. And of course, when you look back at that version of yourself, when you've gone through a challenge with mental health, it's really, really hard to separate yourself. But the biggest thing, and like if there are people going, how the hell has he gone from that journey, like being there to where he's at now? Which like we will talk, we'll bring the mood of the podcast up, I'm sure. Is that the only difference between me then and now? Obviously, habitual stuff. Don't drink, train more,
Mhm.
very much into the biohacking science of how you can feel as good as you possibly can anyway.
Yeah.
But knowledge, knowledge.
Yeah.
And I'll say it in any time I get the opportunity to speak in front of a group of people. All of these lessons that I've learned to look after myself. I went through all of school. I was a good lad.
Yeah.
Got a little bit more rebellious as my parents were getting divorced at college, but I went through college and did okay. I've always done okay, but none of those educational spaces gave me any form of tool to be able to deal with any form of challenge in my life. None
Hmm.
of them.
No, none at all. No. And it's interesting that you say that, because I remember we took that clip from your podcast where I talked about my teacher who said the problem with Andrew is the lights are on but no one's home.
Ugh.
It's because it wasn't interesting. It didn't give me anything. It didn't give me anything in return. And I think that's what I think is so important. I mean, for me as a dad, is my daughter had the opportunity of either going to mainstream school or going to special educational school. Now, I know for a fact she would have drowned in mainstream, but in special educational school, she's going to learn so many life skills, and she does. And she's getting to do the things that really we probably all wish we did at school. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I jokingly say all of yeah, all of the shit houses, let's just say at school, would go on trips to the fire fucking brigade for a day,
Hmm.
use all of their kit, have rides in fire engines, for
Yeah,
being a good, for being like for staying in line and having your uniform top button done up and getting
yeah.
your homework in on time. You just got more days at school.
Yeah. Do you know what
Class,
used to
thank
piss
you.
me off at school the most is every year we used to have I know there's a bit of an age gap between us, but our headmaster was still the cap and gown annual at the end of each summer term. We'd have the big sports hall full up, and he'd walk up in his cap and his gown.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I am only 43. It sounds like Victorian times, but I remember there was always that group, probably five, and I like to call them fucking, I don't know, lunatics, who used to get awarded, and I mean awarded, for 100% attendance. Oh, well done. You weren't born with any mental health illnesses or physical
Yeah,
illnesses.
yeah, yeah.
And they used to get awarded for their attendance. And you're like, oh, wow. What about the kid in the wheelchair who can't fucking walk and sometimes, can't do this? And it's funny how, as a kid, I remember looking at even that back then and thinking how differently people get treated. So,
Do you
mate,
know what's? I'm just gonna chat without having a tinfoil hat on here. Is the psychological preparation for adulthood, right?
yeah,
Because even in some of the big firms I've worked for, I say some, I've not worked for many firms,
yeah,
but even there, you would be awarded an extra day's annual leave or maybe a financial reward if you managed to go a whole year without any absences at work as well.
yeah, yeah,
Like, ain't that fucking nuts?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole, but we're not gonna.
Amazing, dude. So, dude, tell me about where you are now. Where have you, how you, we know where you've been, we know you, well, where you were and so forth, but like, tell me about now, because, dude, I'm not going to lie. You've got a shit ton of medals on that wall right there.
Yeah.
And you just said about this 23 stone guy who was couldn't run a mile. And I can actually see that there's 2024 on there. So some of this is recent, right?
Yeah. So we've got some cool shit up here, right? Like, I'll be honest with you, proudest day of my life here, London Marathon 2024. Just the greatest event and thing I've ever been part of, but also the hardest thing I did as well. And we can come on to that. Other milestones. This was my first and currently only ever ultra marathon. That was the Jurassic Coast Ultra. That was October 2023. Unbelievable day. Very much, I would say, a key point in my life where I'd fully proven myself wrong. Like
Yeah.
fully.
How far is the ultra then?
54, well, 34 miles, 54k, 32 miles, 54k, yeah. And
What?
6,000 meters of elevation. Yeah, in one day, yeah.
What?
7 hours and 15 minutes it took me. Yeah.
Wow.
There's just some some other half marathons. Don't know if I play them down. My first ever half marathon medals up here. My half marathon PB's up here. My 10k PB's up here at the minute. And also, I'll mention this. This was done in November last year. Somebody had this bespoke made for me because I completed the Goggins challenge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And I mean, should I bring it close to the camera?
Yeah, man. What's that? So 4 miles every
4 hours for 48 hours. It's actually really sick, to be fair. Like,
I wouldn't stop running, mate. It would take me longer than 4 hours to run 4 miles.
yeah, and so this was I did it for charity again. I did it for Movember, which has been an annual thing for me to do, to just raise as much money as I can for that charity. I don't know. I think when you go through a mental health challenge and you realize how serious it can be without the right lessons, without the knowledge, being able to give something back to people that may not be as fortunate as me or not have learnt the same lessons as me yet is quite a nice thing to do.
I love that.
And from this as well, so I give my dad the sponsorship forms as what to go into the local pub and tell people what I'm doing. We raised over 2 grand, I think, and
Wow.
we got invited to the Movember Awards this last month. In London.
Didn't you put a picture of you and your dad up together?
Yeah.
I
Which
saw
was
that.
just a lovely thing for Movember to give back to us. We had like basically a night paid for us. We had food, entertainment,
Oh,
saw
wow.
the incredible. Honestly, mate, when you think you've done something cool to raise money, and then you go to these award nights, you're like, fuck me, like, and I'm really fortunate, touch wood, that no one in my close family has ever been affected by testicular or prostate cancer, or has been completely impacted by a challenge of, like, in fact, of a life loss from mental health, right?
Yeah.
But then you see the people that have, and you're like, fuck me, this makes it so worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But in terms of where I'm at right now, mate, I guess that gives you an insight into what I've done along the journey. I guess it's really hard. I'm a life transformation coach. I originally help people with weight loss, but as I already said on this podcast, is you can't work on one without the other. So I will refuse to work on with people now if they don't agree that when they come into the program that it's a mental health, not mental health, but a mindset and a fitness transformation that they're working on, because there's a reason that they want to change their physical or fitness output anyway. So that's that side of me. Still a podcaster, but just taken a bit of a breakaway. This could go into like an ego chat, right? Like,
I love it.
take away all of these labels. What are you?
Yeah.
Somebody that's given 100% to myself and everybody that's around me.
Beautiful, man.
Every opportunity that I can. Yeah. And what I've found that's done is it's given me a lifelong purpose that keeps that devil and these idle hands not idle anymore.
I love that, man. I love that. Are there any like things that you are looking at on the horizon that are like challenges or things you want to conquer next?
Yeah, so I love hybrid athletes. Like, I really enjoy being strong, and I enjoy being what I consider fit. Like, you can only beat yourself, in my opinion, when you, of course, you. If I had the genes to go and run a PB marathon, I'd give it a fucking go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I can't get to Kenya to run across the mountains with those guys. Like, unfortunately, they would leave me in the dust. And um, what I want to do is just push myself physically as much as I can. And one thing I will just chuck into the mix is that I'm a massive keen footballer, as was mentioned early in my journey.
Mhm.
And when I did like within the Jurassic Coast Ultra and the London Marathon, there was from July to the following June
Yeah.
where I didn't play football. So I had a year out, which
Mhm.
at the end, at the end of my career, being in my 30s, was kind of like a big commitment to stick at for those things and not play football. So at the moment, football is like, I'm very much back in love with it. My one of my passions. I want to play for as long as I can, and then it'll be right. How can I take this hybrid stuff more seriously? So I'm gonna do some like wacky shit, like try and pull 300 kg or um like a 275 deadlift, and then run like a PB half marathon in the same day.
Have you seen that challenge? I can't remember who did it, but it's something like where you do like 10 deadlifts and then run a mile, and there's like
Yeah,
a world record for doing, I think it's 200k deadlift and then run a mile on a track. And
yeah. I
there's a
got
but I don't know about you, but like whenever I do deadlifts, like I do deadlifts and then I like struggle to walk back to my bag at the end of the
yeah, yeah. If you go into a high rep set, for sure. I did 205 for 4 at Christmas. So I mean, I'm
Nice.
not even
So you're in
halfway
the
through
200
that.
club, mate.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. My PB's 225, which is why I kind of I'm into that mindset. I'd like to do a high rocks this year, but
Mhm.
it's become so popular at the moment. Like, it's almost like waiting for like a cup final ticket online, right? The To
So
get
I,
access to it.
I used to judge for High Rocks, right?
Oh, okay. Wow.
So when I first started judging for High Rocks, I was a head judge for High Rocks when they first, I think it was the second UK High Rocks they did, and there were like 1,300 people at the High Rocks, and it was at the NEC. And I think the last one that I did, there was like 9 or 10,000, but then they're getting into like 12, 13,000 people in the 3 or 4 days now. And
I know.
there's like, there's two or three in London in the season. There's one in Glasgow. That they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's blown up.
It's the fastest growing functional fitness sport there is out there. And what I love about it is the fact that the it's what you've just said is both versions of you are at High Rocks.
Yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
seen the 25, 30 stone people doing High Rocks, and I've seen the elite athletes. Like there was a group of I don't know if it was a charity, but there was a group that did it. And I'm probably going to say this the wrong way, but they were all quite, they're all quite big people, and they did a High Rocks, and they were in the very last relay, and we watched them do it, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. They were the last ones to go through at like 10:30 at night or whatever the time was. We're all knackered. And I love the fact of what High Rocks brings as a community. I'm also an ex CrossFitter, so I'm supposed to hate High Rocks.
Yeah, yeah. We're
So it's like yeah.
taking the obviously fitness goes through phases, doesn't it? And I
Of
think
course it does.
we've mentioned 3 now on the podcast already. Like,
Yeah,
in COVID times, everybody was a runner because it was
yeah,
the thing that everybody could do. Then CrossFit became massive, and now High Rocks is the thing. It's interesting to see what's next, right?
yeah,
I'm intrigued because I'm sure there's something been created already somewhere that is going to push people to their next limits. But I don't think I'm one of those people that, as we're aware, when you get into personal development and mindset and bettering yourself, actually being outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Maybe I don't know, mate, but maybe it's the reason why you started the podcast, because you wanted something else to try your hand at to see what you could get from, right? And I think it's amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And most recently, I've done that probably for the first time since I signed up to the ultra marathon, signed up to a goal that made my ass twitch a little bit, which
Hmm.
was put on my first ever event, which people paid money to come and like
And
hear
that
me
was
talk.
just this weekend, wasn't it?
Just on Sunday, man. Yeah, which was like I put a post up yesterday, and I can't even describe how I feel about it because there's a little bit of like, what the fuck, that was amazing, but also like how much confidence it's given me from it, which for somebody like me who was 23 stone, obviously incredibly mentally not well, somebody that's always had a front of confidence and been able to talk in front of people, but never really have some real inner belief in themselves, let's just
Mm-hmm.
say. And
Yeah.
and at times that comes out. One thing that it's done for me, it has really shone a light on that inner belief. Like, I didn't necessarily believe that I could pull that off. I didn't necessarily believe that I could pull the ultra marathon off, but in both occasions it came good. And when that happens, and I know that it's happened to you, and maybe you're a listener on the podcast that you're thinking that you want to do something, but you don't have the belief in yourself to do it. Signing up to do the thing, or just announcing that you're going to do the thing and committing to it, can be the greatest thing you can, whether you have belief or not. But where I'm going with this, very personal, and probably the first time, is that in this day and age, to be a confident version of yourself, we're again in the networks that we're in, we don't mind hearing about other people's success, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a 32-year-old lad from Yeovil who isn't necessarily surrounded by people of like-minded mindsets. So if I'm to shout from the rooftops how fucking great the event was, I still feel a little bit of a voice going, people don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
People don't want
Shush.
to. Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
forget
People
where you
don't.
came from.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. For sure. And that's still a hard thing to combat. And the truth is, nobody really gives a fuck. But there's still that element of like, okay, I'm doing quite well here, but I don't really want to share it too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what? It's funny because people don't like to see people succeed. And I've never really understood that. I mean, I've got friends of mine that are doing amazing in business, and you see the rants that the replies they get on. I know we were talking about Morty earlier on, but Morty gets like fucking
Horrendous, man.
messages every day about, oh, fuck off, mate, you should have jumped off the cliff. I'm like, what? Wow, the knock-on effect that people have on other people. And you know what? There's almost part of me that actually started to look at some of this negativity from people now as a positive, because when you look at like how other people perceive you, that's just how they view you. That's not how you view you. How you view you is the most important thing.
And do you know what, as well, mate? I'll be again really, I guess, a deep moment. There's an element of when you're a sports person who has been positively impacted by my parents. With they've always kind of said like, whatever you want to do, go do it, and we'll like take you to football practice or take you to rugby practice at the time, blah blah blah.
Dude, are you an only child as well?
Yeah, yeah,
Yep, same. Another
yeah,
tick.
yeah. So when you do things, and again, like when I was a kid, I was a bit bigger, so I was never the best footballer and all of these kind of things. But what's happened more than ever recently is I've been told that people are proud of me.
Yeah.
And actually, that inner settlement that it gives you, like the inner, like, that's nice, like, And actually,
Yeah.
when you look at it from the face of it, there was 30 people, or just over 30 people at the event on Sunday, which, like, in the grand scheme of things, it hasn't sold out 1,000 seater arena, but it's a fucking great start. But what happened was my dad walked in to see my keynote at the end, and
Oh
he's
shit, man! I just got a bit choked. Then I could feel
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Then,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and listen to my journey from like when it's your parents, you kind of hide some of it, right? My
yeah,
mum
yeah,
saw me at my lowest, but when it's your dad, you don't really give him the full details because he's from that age group of you
yeah.
just fucking
Dads and lads don't talk, do they?
yeah, crack on. You just crack on. And he came in. and heard the end of it. And look, my dad as well, it's not his cup of tea, right? I'm not sure he'd be somebody that would sit there with a cup of coffee and have an ice bath in the morning and watch Tony Robbins on the TV. But what he did say was, he was proud of me and he doesn't know how I do it. So, and actually when you break it all down and you get all of the kudos from people saying how well the event went and all of these running things, how good they are, they're just things. And I think it's given me personal belief, which is number one.
Mhm.
It's enabled me to continue my journey, which I want to continue learning. I want to continue pushing myself. I want to carry on getting out of my comfort zone. But at the same time, little Harry has made his dad and his mum proud recently, so he's happy with that. You know what I mean? I think there's like a nice little conundrum there that when you prove yourself wrong, that's amazing. But when you also make the people who really care about you, that's the point I'm making, is there are people that you think are looking at you and they really don't give a fuck. But the people that have literally given me the foundation to overcome my biggest challenges of mental
Yeah.
health and physical health without really realizing that they were there. They had a bed. There was a bed, like I had a bed, I had food, I had all of these things that gave me the chance to be all of those worst versions of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we've not finished because fuck me, this journey's just getting started. But we've had another milestone. They're both part of it. They're now proud of me. Now it's down to me, right? That
And
part's checked off.
even though they went their separate ways, I think this is a big lesson for everyone. They went their separate ways, but that didn't change your relationship, right?
One
They
million
still,
percent.
they still have got that. I hate to say it, they're still 100% behind you, right?
Yeah, and there's another little separate story there. I don't have the medal for it, but in 2017, I did my first ever endurance event. So I'd lost a good few stone by this point and signed up to a real local 10K, and they both were there at the end,
Yeah.
even though they hate they probably wouldn't even mind me at the time. It was very sour. Let's go with that, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
toxic waste sweets, sour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but they were both there. They
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
both there supporting.
Mate,
And
I remember my wedding thinking, fucking hell, my mum and my dad and my dad's partner are going to be in the same room. Mate, at one point I was like, on my wedding day, looking around the room thinking, fucking hell, where's my mum? My mum, my dad, and my dad's partner all just sat down they're all sat there and laughing a joke together.
yeah,
And I'm sat there going, that they're all they're not here for them. They're here for us, right?
100%,
Love
100%.
that.
And
Love that.
yeah, man, it's sometimes you pinch yourself, and I think what's really nice actually, it's almost been like a week of reflection because I did the keynote on Sunday, which allowed me to talk about the whole journey, right? And then I did a training for a guy called Chris Shingles yesterday and his clients, and that was specifically I have a something like that I can do, which is from 23 stone to ultra marathon. So I spoke about that journey, and it's the first time I'd spoke about the running journey properly for ages, and that was like I was like, "Fuck me, like this is
Mate, out of
cool."
curiosity, what did you go? Did you go to a point where? Because I know in my journey, I went down really low, and then I came back up to a more comfortable weight. Is there a weight that you kind of went to that you were like, oh, actually, I feel real comfortable at that?
I'm
Yeah.
I would 90. I'm 98 kg now, and I don't even. I've switched. I've gone from being at this in the Stones Club to working in kgs.
Yeah, yeah.
But that I am really happy. The only and it's not about not being happy with my weight. The only thing that I would say for me, who is a keen runner now, is that when I've recently ran a sub 50-minute 10K, and I got really close to running a sub 150 half marathon in Bournemouth last year. When you're an endurance runner or somebody who's running for time, scientifically carrying more body weight is going to affect you. So I've got a coach at the moment, a guy called Aaron. He's a he's in unbelievable shape. We're working together just on aesthetic purposes and for me to drop a bit of weight for me to take on Bristol half marathon in May. And
Nice.
if I can look leaner, like AKA gain a bit of muscle, but also at the same time drop a bit more body fat. I just want to lose 3 kg.
Yeah.
and then be lighter, more athletically capable than what I am now, and then go and smash that PB, and then that'll be a nice little thing to tick off. But I am I'm happy around this weight, man. There's nothing. Maybe there's a little bit of fluff here and there, but it doesn't affect me, and that's great.
Do you find that when you're we talked about the mindset, and we talked about the mind and the body and how they're like connected. Do you find that when you're comfortable, when you feel good, like the numbers almost don't care anymore, because like if you've got the energy, you've got the mind going, like, you know, obviously I know we need to look after ourselves on a health reason for health reasons as well, but that's one thing that really I get a vibe from you that almost I don't know, it's almost like it's actually more about what I can do now.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, if anybody who is on a weight loss journey is listening to the podcast, I would challenge you and say that it's not about the weight on the scales ever, anyway,
Hmm.
ever.
Yeah.
Because when you speak to people who say, "Oh, I want to lose 10 pound," or the number is irrelevant, you say, "Okay, why?" Because I'm going on holiday in August. Okay, yeah, but why do you feel that losing weight is the thing that you want to do for that? Oh, because I want to feel more confident. Right, okay. So let's just separate those two things right now. Feeling more confident doesn't come from what your what the number is on the scales, right? Because again, we could go into the whole like body transformation things here. If you were literally just to go in a calorie deficit and not train and not do any form of training, you will lose weight.
Yeah,
That's
of course. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, yeah. But you may find that your body shape and how you look doesn't change at all. You will literally just look a little bit thinner in the mirror,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is still like if you have weight to lose, that's I'll take my hat off to you. It's incredible to do that. The thing that people want is they want to look in the mirror and be happy with what they look back at, which in
Hmm.
turn then gives you confidence.
Yeah.
So, and there's other things like I want to be able to have sex with my partner with the fucking lights on. I want to be able to fit in my wedding dress. All of these things. It's never just about the scales.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, when you can prove yourself to be physically capable of lifting heavy weights in the gym, men and women, like fuck me, please. Um, when you can physically prove you're capable to say that you can't run and then you go and complete a 10K, or say that you can go and run a half marathon without really thinking about it. These are really cool things. And then what happens is when you prove yourself wrong in those things, maybe you say that you're not a gym goer, but then you start to make it a habit. That gives you internal confidence.
Yeah.
And by the fact of the actions that you're taking here, you're then going to get the physical knock-on effect as well. And
Yeah.
that's what's happened to me, Andy, man. Like
I love that.
when you look at it, it's all been around taking yourself out of your comfort zone with something like an event, and also just the mini little habits here. Get the external, maybe external and internal gratification here, which in turn gives you confidence, plus backed up by the small habits, which gives you confidence. And then you get the double whammy of it all coming up to whatever the creation is at the end of that.
Oh mate, I freaking love it. I love it because, like you just said, like having that destination to get to and having that focus and that goal. I love that you just said as well about the. I was recently listening to. I don't know if are you familiar with Seth Godin?
I've
So
heard the name,
I've
yeah.
just been listening to his book, and he talks about marketing. And what I find really funny is marketing for me is just all about mindset, right? And he talks about when you go to buy a drill bit, you don't buy a drill bit because you want a drill bit. You buy a drill bit because you've got to drill a hole. Well, actually, no one wants to drill a fucking hole, do they? What they want is they need to put the picture hooks on the wall, which is then showing the picture of the family and the memories. So it's actually the memories of that photograph that they're putting on the wall rather than the fucking drill bit. And I think that's
Yeah.
the thing that people focus on, the weight loss, the drill bit, and they don't focus on the picture, which is what they want. And I think that then comes straight back into that mirror that they want to have and what they want to perceive and the life they want to lead, right?
Yeah, man. When you break it down like that, it's such a nice little analogy to use, and something that I'm going to be using when I. But
Amazing.
it's so true. Yeah, it's so true that it's a knock-on effect of. It's not even the secondary part of that, is it?
No.
The because the secondary part of wanting to lose weight would be maybe seeing the scales drop, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the bits after that, which is, yeah, no, mate, really good point. You have to send me through the link to the book.
I will. And if you're on Spotify, if you've got Spotify, there's audiobooks on Spotify.
I know, it's
If you've got-
amazing, isn't it?
like,
Yeah.
it's amazing, dude. Right, let's just tell everyone where they can find you. So obviously, I know your favorite podcast is, I think it's episode, if I just get this right, episode 121 of the 100% podcast was your favorite episode. So everyone can find you on Spotify, Apple, everywhere for
Yeah.
the podcast. So the
All
100%
your usual
podcast.
podcast download platforms.
You've
Yeah.
said that once before, haven't you? Amazing. What about anywhere else? Where else can people find you? Because obviously, I know people will probably be keen to kind of learn more about how they can work with Harry
so
Purdy.
my YouTube channel is 100% podcast 100, and I think you'll see everything in this one place, which is my Instagram, which is at Harry Purdy Official, and I would love to see you there.
Amazing. Harry, thank you so much. Mate, good luck on whatever crazy shit comes your way, because it seems like you're not going to let anything get in your way. But mate, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that wraps up today's episode of the Coffee, Chaos and Confidence podcast with me, Coach Casey. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps other listeners find the show. Also, go and check out the show notes to learn more about my incredible guests. Until next time, make sure you chase your dreams without limitations.